let's go. Okay. The Mishnah had said, we left off yesterday, Mekarish Basa B'cholov Ein B'Kodeshes. Person marries a woman with Basa B'cholov because it's Isurei Hano. She's Ein B'Kodeshes because he gave her something of no value. And as we discussed yesterday, Basa B'cholov, you're not permitted to benefit, not only conventionally, even Shlo K'derech Hano, even unconventionally. You're not permitted to benefit from Basa B'cholov. So just to recap what we finished off yesterday, Reb Chaim explains that although you're not permitted to benefit from Basa B'cholov, even unconventionally, Shlo K'derech Hano, but yet if you have a pot in which you cook Basa B'cholov after 24 hours, which is considered dosam lifgam, which the taste is putrid, if you cook in that pot and that putrid taste is absorbed into viable food, you're permitted to eat the food because there's no stam lifgam. It's putrid. But if we value tam, because we rule tam kiker, the taste is the equivalent of the source of the substance, right? Tam kiker, the taste is the equivalent of the substance. So if you taste Basa B'cholov, even after 24 hours, although it's putrid, but if the substance is the equivalent, the taste is the equivalent of the substance, if the substance becomes putrid, you're not permitted to eat it, although it's inedible, because that's considered Isur Hano, even Shlo K'derech Hanoso. You're not permitted. So if that's the case, why, if you cook something in a pot with after 24 hours in which Basa B'cholov was cooked, why are you permitted to eat the food? That's the question Reb Chaim asks. Even if it's unconventional.
Right, so that pot,
it should be purged?
you have to fix it, whatever,
Correct. But even if you don't fix it, if 24 hours passes and mistakenly you cook in that pot kosher meat, although that putrid Basa B'cholov is absorbed in that meat, and you don't have 60. If you have 60, it's not a problem because it's subsumed. That's bittul barov. That's bittul. You don't have factually. Let's say the person wants to eat it. You're eating it. You're ingesting it. There's some degree of benefit. There is benefit. It's not putrid. It's not. You're going to get sick from it. Like yesterday, the example we gave was like if you take decomposed Basa B'cholov and you want to use it, let's say, to put on ice, then a person shouldn't slip. Right? That's not the conventional way of using Basa B'cholov. You're not permitted. Because that's Shlo K'derech Hano. Basa B'cholov, you eat it. Nevertheless, but since we'll talk about there's some level of benefit. Right? So the halacha is, but you're permitted to eat the food. When we say putrid doesn't mean it's putrid to the point where it causes the food to be inedible. I'm not talking about that case. Let's say it adds some degree of flavor. But it's not K'derech Hano, because a person eats food which is viable. It's more vibrant taste. This is something which is already, it's on its way out. That person normally doesn't eat that. There is a degree of benefit, but it's not the way you normally benefit from taste. Nevertheless, it's permitted. So that's the question. Why is it permitted? Right? If tam kiker, if the taste is equivalent of the substance, and the substance itself is not permitting Shlo K'derech Hano, so why we deal with tam, and tam is kiker, you should not be able to benefit from it even after 24 hours. It's an interesting question. We'll discuss in a moment. So Reb Chaim answered that tam kiker, where is it learned from? It's not learned from Basa B'cholov. Torah says Basa B'cholov. The Gemara says, because it says Lo Sfashol Gdi B'Chalevim 3 times. One's to teach us Echad Yisar Achilo, Echad Yisar Hano, Echad Yisar Bishul. Right? You're not permitted to eat it to benefit, and even if you cook the milk and meat together, it's a Torah violation. You're not permitted. Now, how do I know that tam kiker? That's learned from Nazir or from other locations, other sources. The sources which it's learned from, in those sources, it's only K'derech Hano. So the chiddush of tam kiker, that the taste is the equivalent of the substance, is limited to the context of the source. So therefore, since in those various locations, if it would be unconventional, what would it be? It's not considered eating. It's only conventionally. So therefore, what I draw from there, that taste is substance, It's limited to the location where I learned from. So even though, if it's tam kicker, viable, the liability is like eating the real thing. It's like eating the substance, basar b'cholav. But once it reaches the expiration point, so now how do I deal with it? Because I'm not dealing with the substance. I'm dealing with tam. Do I evaluate this tam kicker, or don't I say tam kicker? It's not tam kicker. After 24 hours, the tam is not the equivalent of the source. If that's the case, you're not in violation. There's no liability, there's no consequence if you eat it. There's, what do you, I don't understand what it trumps it. Because that's a chiddush. Because that's a chiddush. That's a chiddush. Because that we learn from there, we don't value tam. The Torah says you don't value that tam. As over there, the tam is not the equivalent of the ikr. When it's not viable taste, we don't value that tam. It's not tam. It's not tam kicker. It's not tam kicker. We divorce. We're separating the taste from the source. When do we equate substance with taste with substance? Only if it's similar to the original, to where it's learned from. So this is not called. This is not tam kicker. It's nothing. Now that's a good question. No, now we're going to have a question. Now it's a question. Now it's a question. No, that's a question. Now there's a famous argument between the Mechaber and Ramo. We rule halacha on Pesach. Normally during the year we say there's a concept of subsuming. If Isser, something not permitted, falls into Heter, and you have the right ratio, the majority subsumes the minority. Correct? That's called bittul barov. It's bittul. Let's say you have shishim. You have 60 to 1, subsumed. Whether it's the same species, not the same species, it's subsumed. Okay? What about chometz b'Pesach? Chometz intermingles, regardless of the ratio. 1,000 to 1, it's not batel. It's not. It's a rabbinic law. On a Torah level, everything is subsumed. Rabbinically, because of the stringency on Torah law, it's batel. It's subsumed. Because of the seriousness of chometz, and since we were involved with eating chometz all year, it's a fence that under no circumstance is the chometz permitted, even in a subsumed state. It's not permitted. And that's the way we rule. So now we have a question. What about Eina ben Yomo? You have a pot that was used for chometz during the year, and mistakenly you forgot to put away that pot, and your wife cooks something in the pot on Pesach. Eina ben Yomo. It's more than 24 hours passed. More than 24 hours passed. Are you permitted to eat that food after 24 hours? That's the question. The Mechaber rules, just as throughout the year, we say after 24 hours, you're permitted to eat the food. You have a meat pot, you cook milk in that pot. You're permitted to have the milk, because after 24 hours it's irrelevant. Pesach, the same thing. That's the Mechaber. Ramos says, no. That just, even though during the year, Tam Ki'ik, we say Eina ben Yom was permitted, Pesach, because it is stringent at Pesach, Eina ben Yom is not permitted. So the question is, what's the machlokus? What's the machlokus? So Reb Kiva Eger in Shulchan Aruch says it's a machlokus rishonim. What exactly? Why is tam? Why after 24 hours is tam pogum? Why is it permitted? Is it because tam pogum is not classified as taste? That's not called taste. A putrid taste is not classified as taste. That's not tasting anything. Okay? Or no, it is a taste. However, it's called tam kodush. Tam kodush means it's something, it's weakened because it's not vibrant. So chad b'trei is sufficient. Right? That's the discussion. What do you have to have 60 to 1? Normally, what do you need 60 to 1? It's because Chazal made an evaluation when you're dealing with two different substances that you're able to detect one and the other. When it's diluted to the degree of 60 to 1, you're not going to sense the minority and the majority. It could be less. There's certain things, even 40 to 1, because the Gemara in Chulin discusses a case that if you have a case of a kfelo, you have an expert taster, and milk falls into meat, and you're not sure about the ratio. So if you rule tam kicker is doraisa, you have to go l'chumra. Let's say you have a kfelo. A kfelo means you have an expert taster, he's a goy, and you call him up and you say, by the way, and you don't tell him about the problem because you can't trust him. He may be lying. But over here, you say, I want to get your expert opinion on this. I may have added too much this, too much that. Could you please taste it for me? And he tastes it, and he has very sensitive taste buds. And he says, tastes perfect. He says, do you taste anything other than meat? He says, no, it tastes perfect. The halachas, Machaber rules, the Shulchan Gemara says, you're permitted to eat it. Even though the ratio may be 40 to 1. Because again, why did 60 is the cutoff point. Unless it's a davachorif, it's something like a spice or something very sharp, 60 is sufficient to dilute something that it will not be detected. So it's a number which Chazal picked that the dilution is sufficient. But it could be less. But if it's less or you're not sure, you have to call expert taster, the goy. He'll taste it because you're not permitted to taste it. Wait 1 second. Could be whatever it is. Whatever it is. It could be 30 to 1. I mean, whatever it is. Okay? The Ramah rules, today we don't rely on a kfeilah. We don't rely on a goy, even the expert. But where does that have relevance to us? Let's say a person makes a neder, he's not going to eat a certain type of food. Kosher food. He's not going to eat a certain type of food. And that food intermingles with other food. So now the question is, right? Or is the question, did it fall in there or not? So you call up your fellow Jew, there's no provision of neder on him. So could you please taste? And you tell him exactly what's going on. I made a neder, and if that ingredient's there, I'm not permitted to eat it. Could you taste it for me? So according to even the Ramah agrees, you rely on him. Because Erechodem Bisurin, he's believed. Okay? So there was a famous story, and you see the genius of Reb Shmuel Salant. There was a wedding, in the 19th century, people were literally, the level of poverty was unbelievable in Yerushalayim. And there was a wedding. And you can imagine what a wedding was, They scraped together a few whatever it is. And they served slivers of chicken. And while they were cooking the chicken for the wedding, all of a sudden, an Arab comes in with a glass of milk, and the milk falls into the pot. And they're not sure how much milk fell into the pot. They're not sure on the ratio. What do you do? And here you have a wedding. It will be disastrous. Can't serve this little bit of food that we have. You're not able to serve at the wedding. See, what would you do? Call a kfeilah. Call a kfeilah. You call the goy, let him taste it. The Ramah rules, we don't rely on a kfeilah. So what do you do? How would you resolve the issue? So what would you say? Moshe, with your background. No, they're saying vatlis l'chatchila. You're not permitted. It's chicken. It doesn't make a difference what it is. So this is what Reb Shmuel Slav ruled. Reb Shmuel Slav ruled, get a Svardi to ask a goy to taste it. And the goy says, and if the goy says, I don't taste milk in the meat, right? Because the Ashkenazi doesn't rely on the goy, on the expert taster. But and the expert tastes it, so now then you have the Svardi taste it. Because he can rely on the tasting of the. And once the Svardi tastes it, now we have Erechad Bisurin. That was his ruling. That's how you're able to resolve the problem. Okay? So what's the machlokas? What's the machlokas to Mechaber and Ramah? Whether if it's Inu Ben Yom, you cook in a chametz pot after 24 hours where you're permitted to eat the food. If you say the taste is the putrid taste, the Torah doesn't value as taste, that's not called chametz. It's not a taste. Something putrid, you're not tasting anything. It's nothing. Torah doesn't value that. So if the Torah doesn't value it, so it's not a question of bittul. It's not subsuming. The rabbinic stringency is on Pesach, chametz cannot be subsumed, regardless of what the ratios are. So any ben yom, it's not a question of subsuming. If you cook in a pot which is any ben yom, why are you permitted to eat it? Because the putrid taste, the Torah doesn't value as taste. That's not called chametz, period. The Rashba says no. It is called a taste. It's called tam kolosh. It's a weak taste. So chad b'trei is sufficient. 2 to 1 is enough. A race 2 to 1 is sufficient. But you have to come out to the principle of bittul. But we have a principle because of the stringency of chametz. We don't say bittul on Pesach. Therefore, the Ramah rules that Eina ben Yomo on Pesach, you're not permitted to eat it. If mistakenly you cook in a chametz vessel on Pesach, you're not permitted to eat the food. And the Mechaber rules that you're permitted to eat the food. Because the question, what is Eina ben Yomo? Is the Torah doesn't value the taste? Or there's no, it is. It's a weakened taste. And the smallest degree of majority is sufficient to subsume whatever that may be.
But according to Hamburger, why would taste be an issue at all? If the
Only if it's viable, it's an issue. After 24 hours, it's not an issue. No, that's what we do with substance. With substance intermingles with substance. Here we're talking about it was absorbed in the vessel. Right? Chametz is chametz. Right? Here we're talking about there's no substance of chametz. The pot, use the pot, absorbed in the walls, so what's in the walls? Taste. The taste will be extracted. But what's going to be extracted is what taste into the food. So, okay, after 24 hours. No, but Tom, no, that's the argument. It's going to be weaker. It's going to be weaker, right?
how long does it weaken more and more? So if you put it away for a year, if it's been sitting for a year, not a day.
No, so it comes up very interesting. So the Reb Chaim, when Reb Chaim deals with the Rambam, we ask the question, if you're not permitted to benefit chometz, shel keder chano, so even after 24 hours. But the question is only question if you hold tam, pogum is called tam. But the Torah says that's not tam. It's nothing. You're not tasting anything. It's tam kicker. That's not tam. Tam is nothing. If it's something, it's a problem. It's a problem. What? Right. On a Torah level, of course not. That's the halacha, right? Any pot doesn't have to be kosher at all on a Torah level. It's only because we're concerned you may confuse, you may end up using it within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, then you have a problem. So because Chazal were concerned you're going to confuse it, therefore if you do it intentionally, even after 24 hours, you're not permitted to eat the food. Because you may do it within 24 hours. If it's mistakenly it's used after 24 hours, so there's no penalty. We don't penalize you. Therefore, you're permitted to eat the food. Okay.
Rabbi, I have a question on the original text of the Gemara here. One is not allowed to betroth a woman with the basar v'cholov.
It's not, permitted, it has no value.
It has no value. What about if the milk is not cooked? It's just meat with
Intermingled.
with cold milk.
You're permitted to benefit from it. Basar v'cholov is only bishul. It's cooked together.
Right. So you permitted it, huh?
You're not permitted to eat it, but you could sell it to a goy.
So it has value, not to eat, but it has value.
Right, so it has monetary value. As long as you're giving something monetary value, she's married.
Right.
Okay. So basar v'cholov. You want to ask something? Minolon, how do we know that you're not permitted to benefit from it? The Tondrei Bishmol, Lo Svashul Di B'Chalevimo, Gimel Pomim. It's mentioned 3 times in the Torah. You should not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Echad isa achilo, echad isa hano, echad isa bishul. Masit lo kaitano. There's more in Be'er. What's the Be'er here? The Gemara says in Be'er, there's machlokes b'sham be'silel. What do you say mitoch? Right? The Mishnah says, a person wants to transport a Sefer Torah on Yom Tov. Are you permitted? Well, transporting is permitted, but only for Ochel Nefesh. Right? If it's food related, you're permitted. So Beis Shammai says, you're not permitted. You want to carry Sefer Torah in public domain from your house to shul, you're not permitted to carry Sefer Torah. You want to take your lulav. Beis Shammai says you're not permitted. It's not food related. What about on Yom Tov? What about carrying a child? You're not permitted to carry a child. That's Beis Shammai. Because the Torah only permits Meleches Ochel Nefesh. Ochel Nefesh is literally food related. Beis Hillel says no, you're permitted. Why? Since the Torah permits this Melacha when it's food related, anything which accommodates you for some value, the Torah permits. So even though it's not literally food, but it's some level of accommodation, you're permitted. So if you need the Torah, you need the lulav, you want to carry your child, it's permitted. It's based on mitoch. Okay? So over there, the Gemara quotes a Bryce. It says, a person who's a vashel basar b'cholav b'yomtiv. How many malchus does he get? How many malchus is he subject to? Okay? So the question is, firstly, there's an Isa Bishul. You're not permitted to cook Basar B'cholov. We have, it's a lav. Right? Echod Lisa Bishul. So for that he gets Malkus. What about Havara? He's kindling. He's creating a fire to cook it. You're not permitted to eat it. Right? So again, and then he eats it. All these various things. So Tosas over there explains, over there has, you have to see the Gemara inside, that why should he be in violation of cooking, Basar B'cholov, meaning on Yom Tif? It's not Ochel Nefesh. So Gemara says it is Ochel Nefesh. If this man chooses to eat Basar B'cholov, regardless of whether he's permitted or not, for him, that's his Ochel Nefesh. Right? It satisfies him. So it's food related. Right? Even Beis Shammai would agree that you would not be subject to Malkus for cooking Basar B'cholov violating Yom Tif. Cooking Basar B'cholov, did you cook Basar B'cholov, that'll be a violation. He's being subject to Malkus. But cooking something that has that's not edible, he's eating it. So if he's eating it, evidently, he values that as what? As his food. So therefore, as a result of that, that's called Ochel Nefesh. So he won't get Malkus for cooking. Cooking on Yom Tif. Okay? So the Gemara says, Mastis lo ki aitano. A man, he doesn't believe in Basar B'cholov. So he eats Basar B'cholov. So you see, he violated Yom Tif for cooking Basar B'cholov. He's going to eat it. That's his Simchas Yom Tif. Right? So he's not in violation of cooking something which is not related to Yom Tif, because he's going to eat Basar B'cholov.
And he's allowed to transport it.
Yep. The Tanya. Let's question how many sets of Malkus does he get over there. So Gemara says, Masis lo ki aitana the Tanya. Reb Shimon Yehuda Omer. Basar B'cholov osa ba'achilo mutmanot. There's an opinion that says Basar B'cholov, you're not permitted to eat it, but you're permitted to benefit from. Meaning, our Mishnah cannot go according to Reb Shimon Yehuda. According to Reb Shimon Yehuda, if you marry a woman Basar B'cholov, she's mukudeshes, because he holds the prohibition is only limited to eating, not benefiting. So it has monetary value. Shenemar, ki am kodesh ato la'Hashem Elokecho. Here it says, you are sanctified to Hashem Elokecho, lo svashim li b'chalev imo, and you're not permitted to cook a kid in its mother's milk. Ulan Omer, does Anshe Kodesh Tiyun Li, you're Anshe Kodesh, and over there it speaks about Treifa. It says, Babos with Treifa, it's besod the Treifa, lo sochelo lekel tashlichen also. Something which is called Treifa, we'll discuss this on the next page. What do you do with it? You give it to the dog. Lekel tashlichen also. You give it to the dog. So that means it's permitted to benefit from. Lekel tashlichen also. So just as it says over there, Anshe Kodesh, and it says over there, Basar B'cholov Am Kodesh Atol Hashem Elokecho, Ma'ala lo nos ba'achilum mutbano, just as by Treifa. You're permitted to what? To benefit, although you're not permitted to eat. Avkan, osa ba'achilum mutbano. But Basar B'cholov, since it's juxtaposed to Anshe Kodesh Tiyunli, therefore, or Am Kodesh Atol Hashem Elokecho, therefore you're permitted to benefit, although you're not permitted to eat. But there's no other way. What do you mean? How do you know it's us? Where do you start from? He doesn't interpret it that way. Because this is the way he learns it. He interprets that differently. I don't know. That doesn't. Okay. It's interesting. We're going to have to go on the next side of the page. It has to do with Mishnah, the Gemara, and Chulin. What happens if you slaughter an animal? It's called the Ben Pekua. Right? You find a calf within its mother's womb, and you slaughter the mother. Are you permitted to eat the calf? The unborn Ben calf. And you open up the calf is alive. On a Torah level, it doesn't need shechita. The shechita of the mother affected it, because the Torah says, Kol b'behemoto chelo. Anything you find in the animal, you're permitted to eat. So the shechita of the mother affects the status of the calf. So Evim Menachai doesn't apply. If you want to cut a limb off that animal, right? You're not in violation of Evim Menachai, because the animal is considered slaughtered. The Gemara says a chulin, interesting case. The Gemara says a chulin, a goy is not permitted to eat Evim Menachai, or a Jew is not permitted to eat Evim Menachai. It's one of the Shemitz Bnei Noach. Now, when you slaughter an animal, immediately after you slaughter it, let's say you cut the majority of the kona and veshet, the trachea and the esophagus. So it's called, you've done shechita. What happens to the animal immediately? It starts convulsing. It's called mefarchesis. When it's convulsing, it still has life in it. The animal still has life in it. So therefore, factually, it's still alive. Still alive. But the Torah says, once you've done shechita, shechita permits evim min achai. Shechita permits evim min achai. But it's convulsing, doesn't make a difference. Torah says, you're not permitted an animal unless it's had shechita. You've done shechita. Being alive or not alive is irrelevant. So therefore, if you slaughter the mother and you find the calf in its womb, although it's a living calf, the calf is considered, you've done shechita. Shechita permits evim min achai. There's no provision of evim min achai. Right? That's the halacha. Now the whole story, Yosef and his brothers, he accused them of eating evim min achai. What was it? It was ben pakua. So he didn't know that. So immediately he tailbeared. He says, my brothers, they're violating evim min achai, even if we're b'nei Noach, but it's evim min achai. But he didn't realize it was a ben pakua. It was the calf that they were eating was, the mother was slaughtered and they found the calf in the womb of the mother. Okay? That's okay? So now it's interesting. So Morris says, a chulin, that according to this, the concept, the law of shechita has no relevance to a goy. Shechita is mat evim min achai for who? For a Jew, not for a goy. Now, what happens when the animal convulses? So the Gemara says, the intestines and the stomach detaches from the cow. It detaches itself. It's no longer part of the cow. So if it detaches itself, what is that? And it detaches itself while it's convulsing. So when it was alive, the stomach was removed from the animal, and the intestines were removed from the animal. So therefore, the Gemara says, if a goy eats the intestines of an animal after shechita, he's liable for the death penalty. Because for the goy, it's called evim min achai, and for the Jew, it's not evim min achai. The Torah says, a Jew is not permitted to eat an animal when it's alive, but if you do shechita, you're permitted to eat it. Even if it's alive, right? That halach has no relevance to a non-Jew. The law shechita doesn't pertain to a non-Jew. So let's say you'd have a ben pakua. Make it simple, and a goy would eat a ben pakua. He's liable. He's eating evim min achai, because factually it's a living animal. But it had shechita. What relevance does shechita have to a non-Jew? Has no relevance. So therefore, he's not permitted to eat the living animal on a Torah level. On the Torah level, okay. Now, when the animal convulses, let's say a person would cut a piece of flesh off the animal while it's convulsing, and he's a Jew, he'd want to eat it, he's permitted to eat it. Let's say he wants to serve it to his non-Jewish housekeeper. He's not allowed to, right? Now, while it's convulsing, the Gemara says the stomach is attached to the body. As it convulses so violently, the stomach detaches from the body internally. Internally. No, but it's not part of it any longer. It factually detached itself. It's not part of the entity. It's not part of the animal any longer, right? So because it detached itself while it was convulsing, it's like you went and you cut the stomach. You cut the stomach from the animal when it was alive. Therefore, a goy is not permitted to eat the intestines of an animal, the stomach of an animal.
But a Jew, yes.
A Jew is permitted because it had shechita. So there's ever, even after the animal stops convulsing, because it was detached when the animal was alive. So Morris says it depends. La halacha, we don't rule this way, because there's a principle known as mika midi. Mika midi is no such thing as it's permitted for a Jew and not permitted for a goy. That if shechita permits it for a Jew, it permits it even for the non-Jew. Although a non-Jew is not obligated in shechita, but if shechita is matir, evim min achai, and the Jew, the prohibition no longer applies to the Jew, it doesn't apply to the goy either. That's called mika midi. We don't make differentiations. So the Gemara asks, so what about zela? If a non-Jew steals, he's liable to a death penalty. A Jew steals, he's not liable to a death penalty. So we make differentiations. So the Gemara says, no, that's the level of liability. The prohibition applies to both of us, Jew or non-Jew. There it's degree of liability. Gzelo, Geneva. Here we're talking about, it's not evim min achai. It's not. So if it's not evim, shechita permits evim min achai, so then we don't make any differentiation. If it's not evim min achai for a Jew, it's not, for a Jew it's called stealing. It's only a question of liability. That's something else. That's different. That's different. What about a Jew, somebody else commits adultery with his wife? The Gemara considers a non-Jew observing Shabbos. It's like you're actually going in a domain which you have no permission to go. It's like trespassing. This is our domain. That's not your domain, right? That's the reason. Okay. It permits Eivim and Achai. Right. The prohibition no longer applies.
Although if the cow dies of a natural death, it's not no shrita.
So my Rosh Hashiva, Zecharim Levrocha, there's a famous Gemara where in Psochim, where there was this goy, and he lived in a community called Nitzivin. Nitzivin was outside of Eretz Yisrael, and every year he would visit Yerushalayim, and he posed as a Jew, and he would actually go and he would actually buy a piece of the Korban Pesach, and he thought he was putting it over on the Jews. He's parading around like a Jew, and then he'd come back, and he would tell Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, something. Every year I put it over on you Jews. That's what he used to tell him. He says, something, you think they're putting it over on you. Do you pay a hefty sum for your portion? He says, yeah. He says, but they don't give you the best cut. They don't give you the best cut. So he says, next time you go, you have to ask for the aliyah. That's the fat under the tail. And if they don't give it to you, then you know they're deceiving you. Okay, so the guy always feels he's being cheated by the Jew. It's a certain subconscious mental state, right? Right? So he goes to Yerushalayim, and he pays his hefty sum, and he says, they said, okay, we'll give you this cut. He says, no, I want aliyah. Aliyah is the fat that's sacrificed on the mizbech, which is not kosher. You're not permitted. It's fat. It's not kosher fat. And he's demanding aliyah. He's not willing to take anything less than aliyah, than the fat under the tail. So he said, it doesn't make any sense. What do you want the aliyah? He's Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, the great rabbi of the Tzivin, said, I have to demand it. He said, if he asked, we have to look into it. They investigated it, and they found that he was a guy. He says they put him to death. They put him to death. So the question is, what did he do so wrong that he deserved the death penalty? Right? So simply you would learn that what happens if you're not eligible to purchase something, and you purchase it by presenting yourself as an imposter, as somebody else. It's not a valid sale, right? I intended to sell to A, not to B. And you present yourself as A. That's gzeila. That's simple. The guy is a thief. Regardless you pay, I'm not interested in selling you. You're posing as a Jew, but if it's not available to you, so you're a thief. So they put him to death. So Rav wants to say, according to the opinion that we do differentiate between a Jew and a goy, even though shchita is mat Eivim and Achai, but for a non-Jew it will not be permitted. Eivim and Achai. When they ate the Korban Pesach, they ate every bit of it. Any part of the animal that's edible, they would eat, including the stomach, including the intestines, right? They would eat everything. So let's say, he's speaking theoretically, let's say the portion in the previous years, he would get the intestines or the stomach, a gzais of that, right? He ate it. So according to the opinion that we do differentiate, shchita is only mat Eivim Nachai, only for a Jew, not for a goy. So previous years, all along, what was he eating? He was eating Eivim Nachai, because the animal after shchita, when it convulses, naturally the intestines, they detach. So if that's the case, Eivim Nachai, that's the reason why they put him to death. Okay? Gimel Amud Beis Psochim. Nothing, right?
Rabbi, if the cow dies of a natural death, and we find a cow inside it with no shrita on the cow, we have to do shrita.
Of course, it was never slaughtered.
Yeah.
Chulin shnishtu ba'azora. Person goes and he takes a non-consecrated animal and he slaughters it in the sanctuary. So the Mishnah says, Ein Mukudeshes, meaning it's Yisurei Hanoch. Person takes a korban, is slaughtered in the Azora. Now, if you consecrate a korban and you slaughter it outside the Mishkan, outside the Beis HaMikdash, what's that classified as? That's called Shchutei Chutz. You slaughtered something that should have been slaughtered in the Beis HaMikdash or in the Mishkan. You slaughter outside. The animal itself although you did shchita, it's Yisur no, you're not permitted to benefit from it. What is the liability? The liability is koris. Person slaughters a korban outside of the Mishkan, Beis Hamikdash, the liability is koris. Okay? That's called chulin, that's called shchutei chutz. Chulin in the Azorah, you're slaughtering it now where it's supposed to be slaughtered. If you slaughter chulin ba'Azorah, not only you're not permitted to eat it, although you had shchita, you're not permitted to benefit from it. So Mor's going to ask, how do we know this? Right? Shchutei chutz, it's a pasuk. It's based on a pasuk. Explicit, koris, and everything goes along with it. But how do we know shchulin shnish ba'Azorah? Why is it isur ba'no? Nohani mili. Om Reb Yochanan Mishum Reb Meir, Om Reb Torah. Om Reb Torah, shchot sheli b'sheli. Torah says, slaughter what's mine in my domain. Meaning in the sanctuary, in the Azorah. Shaloch b'shaloch, and slaughter yours in your domain. That means yours, which is non-consecrated, should be slaughtered outside the Mishkan, and mine, which is consecrated, you should slaughter within the Mishkan. Ma sheli b'shaloch osur. What happens if mine is slaughtered in your domain? What's its status? That's called shchutei chutz. It's osur. It's Yisur no. It's koris. So just as mine in your domain, it causes it to become forbidden even to benefit from. No, just say, but it's fact. Nobody disputes that. Right? Just as mine in your domain, it becomes Yisur no. Av sheloch b'sheli. Yours in my domain, in the Azorah, osur. At the same level. It's a svara. But we have to have a pasuk to know shchutei chutz is osur b'hano. Once we have that, then we can make this comparison. Okay? So Mar says no. Ima sheli b'shaloch onish kores. So if once we're making this, we're equating one to another. So sheli b'shaloch, what's the liability? Kores. If it's enough to draw from it that you're not permitted to benefit from it, let's make the full comparison. Ma ima sheli b'shaloch onish kores. Av shaloch b'sheli onish kores. So if you slaughter chulin ba'Azorah, right, with non-consecrated in the sanctuary, you should also have a liability of koris. And yet the halach is, everybody agrees. There's no one who's of that opinion that you're liable for koris. Omakro vel pesach ol moed lo ivio lakrif korban lashem v'nichras. Hear what it says in the pasuk. Where does it say that you're liable for koris for shchutei chutz, for slaughtering something that's consecrated outside the Beis Hamikdash? It says he did not bring it to pesach ol moed. Lahakrif korban, to be brought as a korban. Lashem v'nichras. Therefore he will be cut off. So he answers, Al korban onish kores, al chunin shenesh ba'Azorah ein onish kores. When do you have liability of kores? For shchutei chutz, but not for chulin shenesh ba'Azorah. The non-consecrated animal slaughtered within sanctuary, there's no liability of kores. But the Gemara says, but factually, there's a difference. One has liability of kores, one doesn't. So maybe, when is it osur no? If it carries liability of kores, because that shows the seriousness of the transgression. But when you slaughter the chulin ba'Azorah, which doesn't carry the liability of kores, maybe since this transgression is not as serious, maybe therefore you're permitted to benefit. That's more ikal mifrach. You're able to refute it. Ma shelish b'shaloch. When you slaughter mine in your domain, the kochim b'chutz, shchutei chutz, shkein onish kores, because it's onish kores, that's the reason why it's Yisur no. But shaloch b'shali, where it doesn't have the onish kores, maybe not. It's not as serious. That's the reason why you're permitted to benefit from it. No, there's a memotzina. We're making like a memotzina. What you find here, we want to apply this, but you can differentiate. Factually, shchutei chutz is kores. So maybe because of the seriousness, that's why you have the liability. That's why it's also about no. But chulin ba'Azorah, which doesn't have the liability of kores, maybe not. To be continued.